Okay, time being 6:30, I'll call the meeting to order. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kirk, would you please?
Yes, Madam Chair and guests, I would like to re-welcome back. You see a familiar face over there with that nice beard, Ryan Wells, who is our town planner, and he has come back to work with us, and we're excited to have him back with our town. So just want to welcome him back. Ryan, welcome. Thanks. And anyway, he'll be here tonight to answer any questions.
Welcome. Okay, public participation. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak on non-agenda item?
Everybody signed up for the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Approval of the minutes. If y'all have had a chance to go over them, and are there any changes or recommendations you have to make?
I didn't see change.
Either did I.
Do I have a motion?
Motion to accept the minutes as is.
Second,
So,
all in favor? Unanimous. Item number 1. Conduct a public hearing to hear public comment, discuss, and take action on a conditional use permit and site plan on property zone general commercial plan development GCPD on block 2C, lot 1R of the Carlisle Edition, phase C. An approximate 2.0549 acre tract of land situated in the EP Holman Survey, abstract number 65, town of Bartonville, Denton County, Texas. The property is generally located at the northeastern corner of FM 407 and Blanco Drive in Bartonville, Texas. The town of Bartonville file numbers for this application are CUP 2026-002 and SP 2026-001. Staff presentation.
All right, thank you, members of the Planning and Zoning Commission. So tonight I'll be giving the staff presentation on the Lantana Block 2C, Lot 1R, essentially what we're calling the Chipotle project. This is a conditional use permit and a site plan, file numbers CUP 2026-002 and SP 2026-001. So this project consists of a conditional use permit specifically to authorize a drive-through restaurant on a property in the general commercial PD zone. It's currently an undeveloped parcel. There's a required site plan that accompanies the CUP application as is required in Bartonville zoning ordinance section 16.8. This project consists of a 2,450 square foot restaurant with a drive-through, which is actually part of an 8,400 square foot MTR or multi-tenant retail building, a very common kind of commercial type of building that you see along 407. And per the application, this particular drive-through is for a pre-order pickup only. So Chipotle has an app where you can do the order in online. You simply pick it up, say thank you, and drive off. This current iteration doesn't have a speaker box. It doesn't have an ordering menu as part of the site. So it's really just a service window on the end cap of the building. So this is a total about 2.05 acre parcel. It's part of the Lantana Town Center, and it's on the northeastern corner of FM 407 and Blanco Drive. Here's a street view image of the property, again, currently undeveloped. Here's an aerial of the project location. You can see it's just across Blanco Drive from the Whataburger, and just again on the northeast corner of that signalized intersection. So the conditional use permit approval criteria are found in within the Bartonville zoning ordinance. And so I've kind of consolidated the criterion in an abridged form and then the findings that staff have made in reviewing the project. So we'll start with whether the project is consistent with the policies in the comprehensive plan. So in the comprehensive plan for Bartonville, there's objective 3.1, which advises the town to limit non-residential uses to nodal development, meaning like a kind of a consolidated location where it's where all the commercial development happens in one place rather than spread out throughout all the town along the 407 corridor and the Macon Road, East Judah Road intersection. So the location of this project is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Second is that it's consistent with the purpose and intent of the zoning district. The zoning supports larger scale office, retail and service. So of course, that's essentially what they're providing here. Right now, the proposal includes the Chipotle, which is the use requiring a CUP, but also indicates that a Papa John's pizza suite will be in there. There's also 2 suites that have yet to be determined. Oops. Criterion 3 is whether it's compatible with the neighborhood and mitigates adverse impacts. The fact that it's located on FM 407, abutting that road, provides for a regional customer base and is complementary to the surrounding development, both in just the type of development as well as the setbacks and the overall pattern of the layout of the site. It's consistent with what else you see along that 407 corridor. There's an assessment whether there will not generate a hazardous pedestrian vehicular traffic. In our review of the CUP and site plan applications, there's clearly sufficient internal circulation for pedestrians as well as vehicles, both customers as well as emergency vehicles. And number 5 is whether it incorporates measures to reduce or eliminate traffic on neighborhood streets. So there are 4 points of access to this site. One is directly on FM 407. One's on Blanco Drive, immediately opposite the driveway that goes into Waterburger. And then there are 2 secondary accesses off the, I guess it would be the east side of the lot on Blanco Drive as it turns to the north. But I would say that the great majority of the access is going to be near the intersection on Blanco and from 407. Criterion 7 is that the site incorporates features to minimize adverse effects on adjacent properties. The primary feature that they show in this application is a screening wall on the north side of the parcel. So it's important to know that this Chipotle building is phase 1 of the development of this overall 2-acre parcel. So Chipotle is on the south side with the other suites yet to be determined besides Papa John's. There's an empty portion of the parcel on the north side of an internal drive aisle. And you can kind of see that on the left side of the image. Is there a pointer on this?
It doesn't
Okay,
work with the TV.
There's the Chipotle. Just to the left of that, you can see there's an internal drive aisle. On the opposite side of that, there's still a pad site that is expected to be developed in the relatively near future. With, from what I understand, to be a Mavis tire service. And so this is kind of phase 1 of the development here. And that's important to note because on the north side of the overall site, there's an open lot and drainage parcel as part of the Lantana development, and then you get into those residential parcels within it. So one of the requirements that we have in the Bartonville zoning ordinance for commercial adjacency to residential uses is that you have to have a screening wall. And so they're showing a screening wall in their proposal to be located on the northern property boundary adjacent to that open space lot. However, their proposal for the timing and design of the screening wall, in my evaluation, is in conflict with our adopted standards. So we'll get to the conditions in a few moments, but I do have a recommended condition of approval that will kind of alter that to align with our adopted requirements there. And then finally, for the CUP review, doesn't meet the standards for the zoning district, any requested variations, other than the conditions that we'll summarize at the end of this presentation. It meets the other zoning requirements for the district. So staff recommendation for the conditional use permit is approval with conditions. Moving on to the site plan review. So there's a little bit of overlap when you look at the code between the criteria for the CUP and those for the site plan. And so I just consolidated the presentation to identify those that aren't already addressed in the CUP portion of this presentation. So criterion 1 is whether there's harmonious design with adjacent uses. Again, one of the main things was to make sure that the driveways match each other on Blanco, so you don't have a bunch of offsets that creates traffic conflicts. And it's a continuation of the commercial pattern, very consistent with the design, the design layout of the other commercial developments in the vicinity. Does the project provide safe and efficient vehicular and pedestrian system? We kind of touched on that already. There's limited access, limited access points to the site. And there's a pedestrian route you can see from Blanco to the front of the building is a marked crosswalk there. Or a pedestrian path, I should say. Does it provide adequate off-street parking facilities? Now, we reviewed the parking requirements for the development against the parking that they provide, and they do meet the minimum requirements, just barely, and they did there. But from a functional standpoint, they do meet the criteria, but from a functional standpoint, because the Chipotle is likely gonna rely heavily on the drive-through, and the Papa John's is generally a pickup type of service, I think the parking functionally is gonna be perfectly adequate. Number 4 is the project designed to accommodate traffic and emergency response. There is a couple conditions of approval related to this that we'll talk about. But we did confer with the ESD, and they did say that, with those conditions, the design is gonna be fine to support emergency response to the site. Criteria 5, does the landscaping provide adequate buffers? For phase 1, it does provide sufficient landscaping. And again, we have that screening wall condition from the CUP, which we'll summarize in a moment. And criterion 6 is whether the exterior lighting provides safety and minimizes glare. We do reiterate the lighting standards as a condition of approval to make sure that there's no glare onto the neighboring residential uses. Number 7, is there protection and conservation of water courses? If you can see, it's a little bit less visible on this site, but on this plan, but on the bottom of the image, there's a swale that basically carries a lot of drainage, a pretty significantly sized swale. Maybe you can see it in a different image here. Yeah, kind of on the south side of the parking space there's a large drainage swale, a huge garbage basically. And that's not currently within any recorded drainage easement, and so to protect that drainage, because it drains a large area, it's not just drainage for that site. I do have a recommended condition of approval related to that, and we'll get into that in a minute. And then finally, does it provide adequate utility capacity? They provide a utility plan, provide water and sewer, and so that's there. And then number 9 is essentially reauthorizing the fact that the planning and zoning commission and the city and the town council can provide or require conditions of approval, and so yes, we're gonna have some of those. So staff's recommendation for the site plan, SB 2026-001, is again approval with conditions. Before we get to those conditions, I want to just revisit the public noticing requirements. So in preparation of tonight's public hearing, we did publish the newspaper notice for this item. There were 10 mailed notices sent out for all properties within 200 feet of the property boundary. And to date, we haven't received any written comments on this proposal. So for the conditions of approval, there's a single condition of approval recommended for the conditional use permit, and I'm just gonna read it verbatim for the record. But and of course, explain it and summarize it a little bit more if we need to. So for CUP 2026-002, the recommended condition is that the proposed screening fence on the north side of the property shall be installed prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the proposed building, and shall meet all design requirements found in Bartonville zoning ordinance section 13.3 C14. A revised screening wall detail shall be reflected on the revised site plan to be reviewed and approved by town staff prior to issuance of the building permit. So your details related to this, our standard for a screening wall is that it has to be 100% masonry. What they provided was a masonry column and wood screening wall, so that'll have to be updated. As far as the resubmittal, because it would be a conditions met review, this isn't a site plan that would have to come back to P and Z or town council. It would just be us making sure that they incorporate the revised conditions, assuming that it moves forward to town council and gets approved with those conditions in place. For the site plan, we have a number of recommended conditions. Number one is that all parking area lighting shall be installed and operated so as not to reflect or shine on adjacent properties in accordance with the standards established in Bartonville zoning ordinance, section 13.37 and chapter 28. Condition 2, the trash receptacle shall be screened with an 8-foot tall screen connected of masonry materials of like and similar materials to those of the primary structure. Number 3, prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for the proposed building, a replat of lot 1R, lot 2C, Carlisle Edition, which is the subject parcel that we're discussing, shall be approved by the town and recorded with the Denton County Clerk. This replat shall include the fire lane as depicted on the site plan and a public drainage easement along the front or west side of the property encompassing the open drainage ditch along FN 407, which I mentioned briefly just a moment ago. Recommended condition 4, all fire lane turn radii shall be a minimum of 20 feet. This shall be reflected on a revised site plan to be reviewed and approved by town staff prior to issuance of a building permit. Right now, there are 2 points along the fire lane where there's a turning radius of 10 feet. And the minimum requirement of ESD is 20 feet, so it would be simply opening up the radius of the curve of a couple of those locations to meet the requirement. Condition 5, the driveway from the site onto FN 407 shall be a right in, right out with a raised pork chop directing ingress and egress. This shall be reflected on a revised site plan to be reviewed and approved by town staff prior to issuance of a building permit. The driveway on the FN 407 opens up and faces a raised median, so there is not a full movement driveway at that location anyway. The standard design for that kind of feature is what we call a pork chop. It's basically a rounded triangle that directs vehicles to turn right into the site and then to exit to the right into the site. And there's no question, you're not gonna go forward and turn left, even though there's a median in front of you. You'd be surprised if you know, how much extra work we need to do to direct traffic. And I believe this last one, number 6, the applicant shall obtain a text dot 1058 driveway permit, a copy of which shall be provided to the town prior to site construction. Final driveway location and design shall be subject to text dot determination. Now, I will say on FN 407, the speed limit is equal to or greater than 50 miles an hour. And per the text dot design criteria, the spacing for driveways is a minimum of 425 feet. Right now, the total frontage is less than that. And so I would expect, depending on what TxDOT's determination is, that they might require a relocation of that driveway to meet the minimum standards, but that's ultimately TxDOT's call. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Commissioners? Michael. So Harney?
Yes.
From New Quest, he is the applicant, so I'd like you to come speak with us.
Thank you very much. I am Michael Harney with New Quest Properties. As y'all know, we've been the developer out there for Langtown Town Center. Both the south side of the Kroger as well as this side of the street with Whataburger and a couple retail buildings we've done out there in Breaks Plus. Appreciate the opportunity to come talk with you guys. As you guys may remember, we kind of worked with the town to establish the CUP process for the drive-through, and we kind of discovered that we needed that for Whataburger. This one's much simpler drive-through. I think this, as was mentioned, it's not an order window. You guys can kind of imagine Chipotle is one of those places kind of like Subway, right? It would be a nightmare to order off a board. So, you know, you order on your app and then you can go through and pick up through the window instead of walking the side. So there's no speakers, there's just some wayfinding signs to help you turn in. And then I think they'll may have a little bar across there that you can read and read side and some people side. We've reviewed the staff recommendations. I think we're okay with them. We understand the screening wall, since it's all one lot, probably needs to get constructed at this time. On the pork chop, we have talked with TxDOT. We've gotten preliminary approval. We just need to get a little further into the city on site plan or the town site plan approval so that we can work with Kurt, because the town does have to execute some paperwork to finalize our submittal. But we don't anticipate any issues. I think if we were trying to get a full left in and left out, there'd be no way would be that close to Blanco. But since it's a right in, right out, probably asked to build the pork chop with a mountable curb. You know, so it's a little less or slow, just when someone's not paying attention, you know, they hit a curb, that's not a 6-inch wall. Because that's been our experience, is most times I end up coming back 5 or 6 years later and turning into a painted cross, a painted porch shop, but, we can certainly have a mountable curb one there. I don't think we'll have an issue getting the textile permanent. Don't have any problem with the increasing the radiuses for the fire. I don't know if we necessarily provide the details on the dumpster, but having it out of similar materials to the building is our standard practice. I think you guys can see Newquest being here in the community, we always strive to have a Class A facility. And we're here for the long term, we're not just looking to build and flip and set up it, so, we'll move ahead. I will say the one item on the drainage, there is an existing drainage easement in place. It is actually labeled temporary, just because concept was that we would come back and fill that in at some time. We're doing that on the Mavis portion of the site because their site doesn't work well if they don't have that area. We were able to work on this multi-tenant building where we kind of work around it and not necessarily impact the existing ditch out front. But we can clarify that. I think this is actually what this dash line even is, this is the existing easement that's out there right now. So, happy to answer any questions if anybody has any, but
Do you happen to know what the hours of operation, lunch and buffet is?
yeah, I think they standard that they get open for lunch, so it's around 11 o'clock, and then I think they're usually closed by 9 or so. I'm 100% sure, but it seems to be kind of, I can remember.
I know you were focusing on parking for Chipotle, and I know, Brian said something about Papa John's being primarily pickup. I don't think that's actually true. I used to be in the pizza industry, and I know it's a lot more pickup carry out now. But there will be a lot of drivers, like at times stores can have up to 20 drivers delivering pizzas. So I just want to make sure we have enough parking, not knowing what the other 2 possible tenants would be.
Yeah, so that.
These,
So what we have as a regulatory reference is the parking standard regulations in the code. And so having done those calculations, that 62 spaces is the exact amount that is the minimum that we can legally require. And so that's a very good point, and that's something honestly I really thought about was the delivery drivers. But I would think that at some point they'd have to evaluate the function of their site as well before they sign a lease.
Ryan, can I ask a question? I should ask upon, well, you said there were 4 entrances into the property,
Yes, sir.
4. Okay, 2 of, one of them, go ahead, one.
Yeah, there's one here on 407. One here on Blanco Drive, that one lines up with that front drive going to whatever, both that lines up it. We've got one back here. You know, I think primarily that's probably the garbage guy picking up and circling going out. I don't see that one get a ton of usage.
Yeah.
And this one provides more direct access back.
Okay,
It goes between the bit. This is Blanco Drive here.
oh, it goes into
That
that
Blanco goes and turns, and so here's where the residential starts over there. So this is for somebody coming from the neighborhood to be able to come in and what have them kind of go over that. And we've kind of worked with, because some of the concern was this would then get cut through, but we've had some plan,
Speed bumps. Yeah, just quick, dumb question here. Is your map north justified right now? Is that north at the top of your building? That's north.
Yeah, it's keep your paths, it's north, it's kind of
It
here to south.
Yeah.
This is like 407 is kind of treated.
Yeah.
And so it's not, the roads aren't hitting that part of the woods.
any more questions? We'll probably have some more when we get further into this. Okay. Seeing no more questions, we will open the box line. What time is it?
Sorry, let me go back to the clock, I get back to 5:10. Sorry, Madam Chair, I went to 3 minutes for the speakers.
We will open a public hearing at 6:54. Thank you. Okay, Shannon, have we received responses on this?
As Ryan said, we have not received anything from our public notices, but I do have some that have signed up.
Okay,
The first one is Robert Middle. Who'd like to get up to it?
I was gonna go, well, do I have to go in that order?
Okay.
please state your name and your address.
Yes, Robert Middle, 9741 Blanco. I'm the house right on the corner, across the street, off backing up to the golf course. So one concern is, why does this entry have to exist? That would be right across from my house, lights,
I don't go to the
in
area.
and out.
Does that help a little?
Yeah, so that driveway's right here, right?
It'll be actually closer to right there.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it's right there, it's crazy, so, okay. And then hours of operation, is that true, 9 o'clock? At night, for Chipotle?
Yeah, I mean, Chipotle, they're 9 or 10.
Okay.
They might be 10 on weekends or something like that.
And then, how much room on the, drive-through? Cause there'll be a lot of cars probably to come, does it come around the building, where does that go?
Yeah, so, we look at the site plan. There is queuing distance from here, and then they'll be able to go along the back of the building as well, and so have clear movement. But the primary queuing is from the service window up and around, and it's like for at least 7 cars.
Okay. So the back of the building will be facing my house, is that correct? The golf course? The back of Chipotle?
Yeah,
Okay, are they gonna put any retaining walls there, so we don't have to look at the back of a commercial building? What's the plan there?
there's a vegetated buffer right there.
Will that be right on Blanco? Or
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, there's gonna be a vegetated buffer, and again, there's an empty lot to the north, it's on the left side of that drive aisle. That's also gonna be developed at some point, and that will have its own landscaping requirements as well.
and then what are the heights of that landscape? What are they plowing, just putting in little bushes, are they putting in 6 foot, 8 foot?
I'd have to look that up. It's 3-inch caliper, so it's a 3-inch caliper. That's what you have in your ordinance. Yeah. Thank you, it's a little short.
Pretty small.
No, size of matter.
Yeah.
Sweet.
You're down to 38 seconds. Just a-
What, he's looking something up?
Yeah, I can get back to answering this question after his comments over with.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, so my time's up now?
No, you have 24 seconds.
Pressure. All right, I'll just listen to other questions. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Tricia, middle?
There you go.
Hello, nice to meet you all, my first time here.
Please state your name.
You're Tricia Middle at 9741 Blanco. Then pass.
We just need that for the record.
Okay. Another thing you're talking about is, and I'm learning a lot tonight too, what's about to happen. But one thing that I did have a concern about is when you turn in on 407, turn right and you come in, Waterburgers over here on the right. Well, I have run into just driving and about to turn left on Blanco, and I've had people come right in front of me, running up into the Waterburger driveway. And I've had to stop. Because there's people coming down Blanco towards Waterburger, there's no stop sign or anything. Like nobody, I don't think, knows who needs to yield. You know what I mean?
You're gonna have to back up a little. I'm sorry. I need to know, are you on Blanco? Because you were talking
Yes.
about that 407.
I was saying like coming
If I
home.
put me on
I'm coming home, right? So I'm on Blanco, right? If you put up the picture that shows the houses behind the lot. This is our house right here. And then here, this is Putting Green right here, which is kind of, to me, still kind of close to that too.
So is that the corner?
So what I'm saying, if I'm coming home on 407 and I turn right here, there are people coming down Blanco and just go right, like into the drive-through right there. So I'm just kind of concerned when there's gonna be even more traffic, how we're gonna control, people coming down, whether they're gonna go into there or they're gonna stop and go into Whataburger.
Are we
I don't know
responsible
who
for
kind
the
of handles that.
roads?
Yes, Madam Chair, we could look at putting a stop sign there to prevent that concern.
Yeah,
Once this goes in, that roadway is ours up until you get to the far north side where their home is. So we can look at doing that. We could end up with a stop sign, I guess. We just have to put it in the ordinance.
yeah, because we see golf carts coming down, kids on bikes coming down, and people walking.
But I'd still have to look at it. I'm
Yeah.
not saying we're gonna do it. I'd have to evaluate that possibility, but that is in our town that we could look at doing something.
And Kirk, are you thinking the stop sign would be on the southbound traffic, so that you wouldn't want to put a stop sign on Longville coming?
Right, it would be on, if we looked at doing it, like her concern is, she's saying that they came across this way, right? So we put a stop sign here, not here. Yeah, I
Correct.
mean, so. But I'd have to look at this,
Yeah.
evaluate it, I'm just going off the cuff here.
Mm-hmm.
But that definitely could be something to prevent that concern. This is the first time we've heard about it. So,
Yeah, I've
you
been
know,
experiencing.
we haven't had any accidents there, so,
I know,
I mean, that I know of.
yeah.
haven't heard of it. Okay, so we can look
Anyway.
at something like that, yes, ma'am.
And my only other question I had is with the trash gonna be, it sounds like basically right here. So what time of the day are they gonna be doing the trash? Cause we can hear them do Whataburger trash during the middle of the night. And deliveries and something, and that's just gonna be like almost by our end of our driveway.
I do
So I
not
don't
have that
know
answer
if
what
anybody
time
knows
they
what
do trash.
time.
I'd have to give
It's
it,
really
I'd
loud,
have to give it, Frontier, but
yeah,
I do not have that information.
so whoever.
I would think it would be a pretty good guess that if they came to Whataburger, they wouldn't wanna come at another time to pick up from this other, so.
Yeah,
Don't hold me to it either, but it's common sense, they do it at the same time.
yeah. Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Rudy Garcia.
I brought some handouts and you could follow, and then 4 copies, so. I'm just gonna go down the list, since I only have 3 minutes.
We need your name.
My name is Rudy Garcia, my address is 9740 Blanco. I just want to point out, according to the Open Meetings Act, your website says this meeting starts at 6, your flyer says 6:30. I don't know if there's conflict there, but y'all want to look into that. Okay, Ryan told it a drive-through, not a pickup window, so is the CUP being applied for as a drive-through or a pickup window? I don't need an answer. But if, a pickup window is not, it's not as horrible, no one's opposed to it, Chipotle. But a drive-through window in the application gives them latitude, leverage to change that if they want it. I also heard that there were wayfinding signs that are gonna be there. Y'all city ordinance do not allow any signage to face our homes. And there's no variance for that. All right, you say this in opinion, this iteration has no speakers or no menu. But in fact, you can't guarantee that it's not there. That was an opinion that was put out there. It would be nice to have that in writing. Your comprehensive plan does allow for the neighbors, in your space, I guess ours, for the reasonable. Okay, reasonable peace in their homes. So that is another part of your comprehensive plan. So when you give the opinion that it does meet your comprehensive plan, Ryan, that is a portion of it, not the entirety of the comprehensive plan. And as far as the adverse impact, I haven't heard of a traffic study, a noise study, or a light study. So I think it's an opinion that it doesn't have an adverse effect. Because the tire store went in, we were told there'd be landscape, they're 12-inch bushes, and we still hear the guns. Whataburger was supposed to have a bunch of trees, 5 little 3-inch trees. You can see Whataburger, the trash is everywhere. This is phase one. You're saying that there will be trees if Mavis signs, not when or they have. Again, that's dependent on Mavis putting in a tire store. So there is no landscape. You can see that on the second page. There's one tiny little tree that separates us from them. Yes, this little guy right here, that's it. Right, 2 trees back here, that's it, 2 trees and 1 little tree right there, there's no landscape. Again, somebody has to sign that. On the 3rd page, you'll see that the pickup window is 211 feet from my house. That's that corner where you're sitting at to the bridge, okay? From his property to our property, it's the length of this building. So these are very tiny little spaces. You can see that on that same page, there's an arrow, the queuing, all the cars, headlights face my window, and that's it. So thank you for your time. I'm sure there's a lot more that needs to be said.
Troy Stevenson?
I think we'll give him my time, but I'll tell you what, you keep off the side, so there's gonna be another lot of the future. Where's that lot?
Right here, sir. It's actually the same parcel. It's just another pad site on the same parcel.
But I'm saying, is it,
It's to
I was,
the,
I'll go.
it's to the north of the Chipotle.
Okay, but what I was told, I live right here. Okay, 9730. I was told behind that was easement when I bought the house. They said it was easement. Is that true?
Can we get your name and address for the record, just
Troy Stevenson, 9730 Bartonville Drive.
Okay, so. Basically, what's green right here is the commercial property.
Okay,
There is a parcel here, presumably under a drainage easement. That is part of the Lantana development that will not be developed with anything, that stays open as part of this, as a drainage and detention area for stormwater.
okay, that's what I was questioning, because when you're talking the extra parcel. So you mean right, just where that little
Essentially, right
runoff
here is the phase 2 of
Oh,
what
you're
is.
talking about the turns into the power store.
Yes, sir. That's what it appears to be the plan for that portion of the parcel.
Okay, and I reiterate the banging on the trash cans, but I guess that's just the way it is, you know, if you buy a house out. 2 o'clock in the morning, you get to hear trash cans pick up lids playing around, I say. But that's okay, we don't mind.
Phyllis Stevenson?
Bill Stevenson, 9730 Blanco. I would like to,
Could you pull that mic towards you? Thank you.
9730 Blanco. Short and sweet, property value, and I don't wanna see the back of industrial buildings in my backyard. At that point, I am turning my time over to Michael Garcia. It's far beyond my intelligence.
And 3rd page, you'll see that they're putting in a grease trap 188 feet from our property line, which is not, it's not horrible, but if this changes ownership, I mean, that is an impact that you cannot compensate for with money after it's in.
Can we do, I mean, I don't think we can allow him that time for. He's already had his. He can't.
You have a
You
precedent that
can't
you've done.
feel
it.
like
But my time.
Yeah, that's not.
That's fine.
Do we need to go back to the Whataburger and
no.
look at the precedents just set there?
This is really a time when we're not to be doing too much back and forth with you. During a public hearing, you need to make your presentation. And I think since we've hit the end of your time for that, and that's it.
Jeremy, right?
If you would like to come finish your time up, you're welcome to, Cameron.
I will just. I would just reiterate that. What you're doing. Is affecting the value of my property. And the. Presence of my home and. My pleasure of it. And what I'm viewing. And. I didn't move here 10 years ago. Anticipating this to happen. Okay, a question I do have, which is probably totally off the record, but and you don't have to answer. There is property, okay, on the other side of Whataburger, between Whataburger and Right Plus or what have you. Is that not going to be developed? Why is that not developed in place of where you're proposing?
We can't really address that. We can only address what's coming to us from the owner and developer of the property and make sure that it meets the things that we can control. We have no control over any of it.
Okay, and I'll go back to, the so-called statement about, we're gonna put in vegetation. But from what I'm understanding is. Their thought of the vegetation to
Madam Chair, her time is up.
And
I
buffer.
said it.
is a different vision of what we have as homeowners.
And I understand. Again, we're restricted to what our ordinance has in it, and we have requirements for buffers. We don't necessarily have them put in 500-foot trees. But we also don't, or 30-foot trees or whatever, we don't leave that land bare either. We have built into the ordinance what we hope will end up being beautiful, and we pay attention to what they put in, and they have to put in what's required by the ordinance. So
Madam
that's
Chair.
it. Yes,
There were a few questions posed, so at your pleasure, I'd be happy to address the questions to the best of my ability.
please
They're on the
do.
fly, but there are a couple of legitimate, questions that I wanna at least clarify. So Mr. Garcia had a couple very poignant questions, so, as far as the ordinance goes, there's no distinction between drive-through and pickup window, so unless there were a specific condition, established by ultimately the town council, the CUP would not limit the type of drive-through permitted. Only that there's also a site plan involved, so a site, if someone were to come in with a different business on that end cap using that service window, if they wanted to add features on the site, in like a speaker box or anything like that, they'd have to come back in for a site plan amendment. So there would be a time where this would come back to P and Z and council for any adjustments to the site construction. As far as adverse impacts go, there was not a noise or traffic study, but there is a photometric plan right here in the packet, and so that was evaluated to determine the photometric impacts to the property and nearby.
But your photometric ends at the property line.
Yes, sir.
Sorry.
That's right. There's also, we are required to have hooded lights, so the photometrics don't extend very far beyond the actual property line, if at all. The timing of the landscape, again, we did require the screening wall to come in with this first development to mitigate the anticipated impacts or potential impacts. But to install landscaping on a site that is yet to be developed tends to be counterproductive because that landscaping is going to likely be damaged or destroyed during construction. So it's very typical to have the landscaping installed toward the end of the construction phase of the development. That's why I didn't see a requirement as necessary to install landscaping on the quote unquote Mavis had until that construction, or if that construction occurs. The queuing of the cars facing the windows, again, the attempt was to mitigate that through the placement of the screening wall, as is required by our ordinance. The question about the trash cans, I will try to clarify that the presence of commercial trash cans is not a result of a Chipotle. The presence of the commercial trash cans is the result of the fact that this property is already zoned commercial. So even if this SUP were never approved, it's already property that's long been zoned commercial, and any other commercial user, Papa John's, can come in without a CUP. So if the commercial precedent is already set, what this does is only adds the ability for them to have that service window on the north side of the building. But these other externalities of commercial photometrics, of the trash cans, the trash pickup, that's something that would happen whether the CUP is approved or not. So I just wanted to make sure that that's very clear. And again, last thing about the vacant property to the south, that's also zoned commercial. Most likely, again, I can't speculate, but there's certain dimensions of a piece of property that a user needs in order to develop it a certain way. But I guess I'll leave it at that. If there are any other questions from the P and Z for me, I'd be happy to answer those as well.
Let me close the public hearing and then we'll go on to that. Close the public hearing at 7:16 PM. All right. Someplace in, like, I have a question for you and it's easy.
I like those.
And that is, the pictures, I can't tell where you're really gonna have Chipotle and where you're gonna have Papa John's, because in some of the pictures, they're side by side, and in other pictures, there's an empty space in between. Do you know what?
I think when we originally did the renderings of the outside, showing signage, and that time we only had, for sure, we had Chipotle on the end, which of course will be on the end because they had the pickup window. I will say, we addressed real quickly, the CUP. Part of that CUP, when we did like the Whataburger, was showing where the menu boards were, showing where speaker boxes were. So by the fact that those were not included in the CUP application, I assume someone had to come back and almost do a whole new CUP if they wanted to add the menu order boards and those kind of things. So there is some protection in that. That's not intended, it's not included in the application, so this will just be the appropriate. It all comes about because the city originally didn't have a way to allow service from to a motor vehicle. So drive-through, sign, pickup window for Chipotle. There's some allowances for coffee shops. I think that's just it. But anyway, to go back to your question, I think when we had the Papa John sign set there, we already had somebody that was really interested in space in between the two. I don't think that's come to fruition. I'll have to check. So I think more than likely, if it's not, then we would have the Chipotle on the end, Papa John's right next to them. Because if we put them kind of in the middle, now I kind of define them, my two spaces already, right? So I want to keep them, don't want to have vacant spaces in between two that got locked in, because I kind of, now this one's definitely 1,800 square foot, it can't be 2,200 square feet. And we see that from time to time, just different flexibility needed for users.
Thank you.
No,
You confused me when I kept looking.
sorry about that, yeah, it's sometimes the documents get a little outdated from each other.
Yeah. I think that's it for right now.
Okay.
One of the things that is within what you wrote, Ryan, and that I want to see what the commissioners think about it, and that is our ordinance requires 300 feet. TxDOT generally wants 425. I'm uncomfortable with 265 instead of 300. And I'd like to hear what you, ultimately, the decision to what it's gonna be is TxDOT. However, it gives me heartburn when we're talking about 265 instead of 300. Comments?
Gloria, would you like me to explain my thought process when I was evaluating that?
Yes.
Okay, great. So, yes, as you rightly note, our spacing requirement for driveways from an intersection on 407 is 300 feet, which is in conflict with the 425 minimum that TxDOT has in their standards. Nevertheless, when I was looking at just from a city standpoint, there were a couple factors that led me to not immediately saying you have to go to 300 feet just out the gate. One, it is a right in, right out pork chop, so there's gonna be a lot less traffic and there's no cross traffic. But more importantly, the fact that 407 is a TxDOT facility, they have the ultimate authority on that spacing. And with my experience with TxDOT, they rarely provide such a significant variance from 425 down to 265. So my expectation was that in the TxDOT 1058 driveway permit process, they were gonna see that and say, no, you gotta move that driveway. That was my assumption. More recently, Mr. Harney did indicate that TxDOT had given a verbal that 265 was going to probably work, but that was after I'd already submitted my report. The total frontage length on that parcel, all the way up to where that open space lot is 375 feet. So if TxDOT has a standard that exceeds the actual frontage length of the parcel, they probably just make them move it up as far north as possible, if they were gonna be strict on application. If they're not, then the city does still have the ability to say 300 feet minimum. Even if TxDOT was saying, well, they're okay with 265. It's just, we could go more than them, but we can't go less than them if they have a standard that they're gonna stick to that's more strict than ours. Does that make sense?
Makes sense, but it doesn't make my heart hurt.
I know. The other thing was, in order to get a variance, this would have to go to the zoning board of adjustment. If in a situation where the TxDOT was gonna still maintain their 425 minimum. If we say, okay, you gotta go to VOA to get 265, we have another hearing, all of that, and then they go to TxDOT and say, actually, you have to go to 425. Then that would have really been just a lot of effort wasted, and probably the VOA wouldn't have appreciated the fact that they had to do a hearing on something they actually had no ultimate control over. So that's really the couple of things that I was thinking about when evaluating this specific standard.
Is that in our zoning ordinance?
Is what specifically in our zoning?
300 feet.
Yes,
I do not see that we have the ability to ignore that. Jeremy?
So again, this is just for, all we're evaluating tonight is the CUP, and so again. You know, I haven't been a part of the application before then, but I'll defer to Mr. Walls. I mean, again, that's not really for P and Z to determine whether or not.
well, it's part of the site plan.
Yeah.
It's in the site plan, the standard is applies to the site plan review. And so that's why it is germane to this conversation, but again, I was indicating that deferring to TxDOT's stricter standards made the most sense in this situation.
And I understand that. But it still leaves P and Z recommending something that is not required in the ordinance. That 300 instead of 265.
So that's why there was a condition of approval on the site plan that before they could do any site work, they had to get that TxDOT 1058 permit, which would subject them to TxDOT's review and presumably TxDOT's minimum standards.
Okay, jump in anytime.
So I have a comment. Borough approval, not written approval.
Just for, we've met with them, we've showed them the dimensions, we've talked with them. The fact that there was a hard median out front is what gave them some comfort. Although, somebody will not be paying attention if you put it in the pork chop. But that's what kind of gave them comfort. The issue with shifting it a little further is then it gets out of alignment with the driveway that's between our building and in the future Mavis Tire Building. It gets to where now you're kind of driving straight to the front door Mavis and you have to turn, you have to turn, so it starts not to function as well if it gets shifted down.
I think that deferring, as Ron did to TxDOT, was reasonable. I mean, the surprise was that their minimum was okay. If we demand the 300 and go against TxDOT, if you will, and ask for more, what does that buy us? What do we get from that?
We don't get anything. I want the assurance of this is of our attorney that we're not, as PNC, as this body, doing something wrong by recommending 265 for the site plan instead of the 300, that is what we wired and reported.
No, that would be not anything that would be problematic or anything like that, really to decide whether or not the site plan is appropriate based off of everything that was spoken about by the applicant, by our planner. And so that is the minimum, but again, it's up to the P and Z to determine whether the site plan meets all of the standards.
So we're not, if we leave it as is, and it's a reasonable explanation, what we just got as to why you put it there, that's reasonable and acceptable, and I don't see that it's gonna cause issues when it's only right in, right out. I just don't want us to make a decision on something that is wrong as P and Z members to do it. So you're assuring me it is.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Now, that makes me feel more comfortable.
Okay.
Didn't Ryan just say that if TxDOT were to approve, it still has to go to Board of Justice?
No,
No, not if we leave it in.
Correct.
Is there any way to leave it out, or that if it gets TxDOT approval, it would have to go to Board of Justice?
You could do that, yeah, if you wanted that,
That feel better for you?
if TxDOT said 265 is fine. But that's less than our standards. Then there could be a requirement that before site construction occurs, that the Board of Adjustments would have to approve the variance. From
Then it
300
impacts us.
to 260.
And it's not just punting it to
Right.
TxDOT.
It
They make
would-
the decision, whatever they want to do.
Well, it's their road.
yeah, it's not our road, it's
It's their road.
which, my concern was legal. My concern was, can this body recommend something that's against our ordinance? Jeremy just said in this, we're not
Recommending.
doing something wrong by accepting 265 because it's the ultimate decision, isn't us or council in the first place. I'm holding you to that, and I will haunt you and hunt you down.
And I would say this still has to go to town council, so you're not the only person looking at it. Gives you one.
I know, we recommend, but
Sure, no, I
I
understand your
don't want to
concern.
recommend something to them that's wrong.
I completely understand. And
Okay,
it's just one of those site conditions where it just doesn't work to move that drive any further.
Needs to be in line,
well, TxDOT has to give it, we have to have it in, correct, whatever TxDOT decided, we could say. They had to have 800 feet, and TxDOT can say, no, they can have 265, that isn't a thing we can do. Because it's not our road.
And I do get that talk through before we construct that driveway. It's awesome.
How, can you go, will you have a final determination from TxDOT before you go to council, or does it have to go through council first?
Right now, one of the things we have to have is the town, the way municipalities work and what conditions. The town has to actually, say they're signing off on the application. I've been working with Kurt to make sure we're getting the right piece of paperwork for that. But. I hear from TxDOT guys that they're getting quicker and quicker. Yeah. Certainly, I do like that something forward to Steve and answer all of them anymore, but we have already, contacted and gone through this a couple times with the area office, so we don't anticipate that it'll take a long time. I'm not sure when to start having it in hand prior to the council meeting. But again, if TxDOT says no, then we can't build it.
Loretta, to make a distinction there, the city would not be a signatory to the 1058 permit, but TxDOT generally wants to make sure that the city's okay with the design before they submit for the 1058 permit, because it's still in our town boundaries, so.
Sure it is.
Yeah, so that's generally what my interaction with TxDOT has been. Town does all of its reviews, we're good to go, then it goes to TxDOT. And then they, again, plenty of times they say, well, this doesn't meet our standards, so you have to go back and make revisions.
Mike, could I ask a question? So we're talking about TxDOT and we're talking about if they say it's gonna be 300, what does that do to this site?
You can't bring up the, public that shows Davis.
Yeah. I'm just saying if they would go with our board.
So this is 265, 35 feet, is about the same as 4 parking spaces, so I have to shift that drive over to this area. If this is the Mavis building, then they're kind of coming in straight to the Mavis building, having a hard right and a left, they're gonna come back in here and they're having, it's not as smooth as the traffic.
But could you redesign it and shift it further north so you don't have that problem to meet our?
Anything past here, we're now creating a situation where you have to make a turn when you come in. Because Mavis will be right here.
I don't think I have the
But
code.
behind the Davis building,
There's no room here to fit that, to build a second. At that point, because we would have this central drive regardless.
Thank you.
Comments?
Would they look at having all the traffic come in off of Blanco instead of 407?
The biggest concern we had when we talked to TxDOT was cut through traffic. Yeah, I'm sorry, my microphone. The biggest concern in our conversations with TxDOT was cut through traffic. And so that's originally this drive here was more directly in line. So that kind of creates a slowdown either direction. We added some speed bumps just to make it as unpleasant as possible for someone trying to cut through, but it'll probably still happen some. I don't know how much of this traffic as it comes out of Blanco isn't going in that direction on 407, but there will be some that, and that's one of the reasons why I said offset that back drive and the main drive, just to keep traffic calm a little bit.
I'd say a lot that comes out of there goes down 407 both ways because of the stoplight.
When I was looking at this, my first thought was, why do we have to have an opening? Why do you want an opening on 407? Because of this slowdown of traffic, but I answered my own question and it makes good sense and safety sense. If you closed off 407 and you have the other 3 only, people who want to go to whatever it is, Mavis, whatever that is, would drive right through where there's pedestrians going in and out of that building to go over to the Mavis thing, and that would be a created danger for everybody who was in one parking.
And then from a commercial development standpoint, if you didn't have this, I don't think you make the Mavis then. Because what happens is if you're at this light, you're looking at this building and everything, you don't really notice Mavis until you've already gone through. So you either gotta go down, U-turn, and that lose 15% of your traffic at that point. So that was one of the reasons why we, and again, restricted just to right in, right out, is to capture the traffic kind of going, because that's in the west on 407. If you were coming this other direction, you're still coming to the light and turning in probably on the other one.
Okay, are you ready to get down to any questions that you have on any of the other CUP conditions? Is there anything you want to get into more?
My only other question is they raised the wall issue in the landscaping, so the wall is literally, like, I don't see north, south, east, or west,
Yeah,
the wall is, oh yeah, just
This
look for the wall.
this is the northern. part
Right.
Here, so it would run. We kind of agreed with, the Lantana Association that would start kind of right in front of the building edge.
Uh-huh,
So you wouldn't see the neighbor's building and it would run here at the walk of the pool.
and it goes all the way to,
But I believe our standards do require the wall to start at the front property line, but it can be 4 feet. For the
Okay.
first, I think, 25 or something feet, then it has to go up to the full height, so that's, despite the negotiation with the Lantana, that is the city standard. For the wall.
okay,
Just step it up.
Yeah, so the first section can be 4 feet tall, then it goes up to the full height, which I believe is 6. I believe, if there's not 8,
okay.
I think it's 8.
it might be 8.
Well, the bulk of the traffic going in there is either gonna come off 407 or take that first entrance into La Blanca.
I agree, for this building, more than likely, this still provides a turn in if you didn't catch the sheet coming off of one, but. The only thing in and out, and we'll leave it with these small runs, so it won't be the wall with that 30 G.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair.
But yeah, the standard says explicitly, so it says a brick or masonry wall with stucco or mortar wash finish. Both exterior finishes being the same shall be constructed along the property line. They will also be a minimum of 6 feet in height, except that the first 25 feet from the street line may be stepped down to a minimum height of 4 feet. Then as the applicant says that if there's a drainage easement on the property, you can't put a wall to block the drainage of water, so it just depends on. And if it's a subsurface easement, you generally can't put structures on it as well because of impediments to maintenance, so that would be a factor. We just gotta have to see how it all. There's only so much, geography to work with, and you get these conflicts all the time, and you figure out how to implement the site as fully as possible with those conflicts in place.
But for sure, the back part would have.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, no, the back part here is the landscape.
No, I mean, the back part of the north.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would go up all the way.
Yeah, up in that
Yeah,
area
again,
for sure.
this is, you can kind of see here the width of the detention facility that we're actually bordering, and we won't start a little bit further. I think we have-
Detention meaning there's gonna be water.
There's already, this is the constructed detention facility that we drain to, as well as Lantana, it's all part of the master system, so here there's an outfall that comes from Blanco Drive, so this is taking the water from the residential section. And goes into the larger detention, I want to say it's about 40 or 50 feet. So we're not, this isn't a house, right on the side, there's some separation. And then on the other side of this, along the detention, I believe it's a masonry wall, so.
Would you tell me again what that wall has to be?
Excuse me, it's a 6 foot minimum height,
No, I don't.
it has to be brick or masonry,
Okay,
yes.
I missed that, because in here it says wood.
Yeah, that's right, so that's why in the condition of approval, I say that the wall needs to be constructed to city standards.
And soon, not late.
Right, prior to certificate of occupancy of the building.
So we would make that part of our construction department.
Okay. All right, would you just take the time to tell everybody again, each condition, so that if anything jumps out, they can say, wait a minute, and then.
So may I read them verbatim or summarize them for you?
You don't have to read them, just summarize,
Okay.
okay, we know it.
So there's one condition of approval for the CUP, and that's related to that screening wall. Basically stating that it has to be built to town standards, which is 6 feet minimum height, brick or masonry. And it has to be constructed prior to certificate of occupancy for the building. There are the conditions of approval for the site plan. The lighting needs to be installed and operated so it doesn't reflect or shine as laid out in the Bartonville zoning ordinance, section 13 and chapter 28. The trash receptacle has to be screened with an 8 foot minimum masonry wall or masonry screen that matches the main building. There needs to be a replat of the lot 1R, block 2C that basically includes the fire lane easement within the site. And the public drainage easement along the front of the site, which he indicated was temporary, that's true, but it needs to be a permanent easement now that the feature is in place. The turn radii on the site need to be a minimum of 20 feet. There were a couple of points on the site plan that showed a 10-foot radius, and so that just needs to be widened to 20 feet to meet ESD standards. That driveway on the 407 needs to be a right in, right out with the pork chop. And then finally, prior to doing any site construction, they have to get that text dot 1058 permit, and that will be the question of whether they want to uphold their own standards of that driveway spacing, or if they're gonna accommodate the site plan as presented. Those are all the conditions before you, recommended by staff tonight.
Can I pass? Would we be able to add in that they cannot have outdoor speakers and put that in CUP?
I believe you could, yes.
Yes,
We could,
that could be a condition.
that could be, okay.
I have a quick question on the on our ordinances for landscape versus wall. When do our ordinance require a wall versus when do they require landscape? What's the difference in the requirement?
It's laid out in the zoning district. As a matter of fact, for the Mavis, they will require a wall and landscaping on that north side. And then they have landscaping along the public right of way. They have perimeter landscaping requirements, on-site landscaping requirements, and what they call the compatibility buffer is the wall plus landscape. But as I indicated earlier, the landscaping generally is done at the tail end of the construction phase. Because they do grading and all that, so it's all spelled out in the specific zoning district. In this case, the general commercial.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, because that is an access.
Could you
point-
put your speaker down?
Sure. So if I'm understanding you correctly, because that's an access point on Bronco, makes it landscape versus a wall.
The wall requirement is when you are adjacent to residential uses. So the north side of the commercial property is facing residential development, so that's why the wall is required on the north side. Landscape perimeter is required on all commercial development.
I get that, but is it because it's directly adjacent to a residential? Because right north of the street is a golf course, so is that considered commercial? What's the difference?
It's generally considered institutional use. And so it doesn't qualify as a residential use requiring that same buffer, because the idea is that if you have a commercial use in proximity of residential, you need to do a little extra to make sure that. As the residents here were concerned about, that you mitigate those impacts as much as possible. But the golf course is not a residential type of use.
You pay extra.
Does that answer your question? Sounds like, looks like maybe you still.
I think she's wondering why would there not be a wall behind the property?
Because it's not where the compatibility buffer is required, which would be based in the side of the building adjacent to residential uses.
A good example of that is. Wait a minute, I'm turning around here.
I can give an example, the reserve at Marty D's, I did the site plan for that some time ago. They had their, so they're on 407, the western half of their property was facing a residential development. But the eastern half, they're across the street from the main Marty D's site, and so they didn't have to put that screening wall against the street when they're abutting or the opposite of Marty D's, but once they transition over to facing the residential area, that's where they had to put that screening wall, that 25-foot buffer. A lot of you guys may remember that. So that's where that requirement comes in. So that for Mavis or whatever ends up developing there, they'll have the screening wall in place, because they have to do that before this development occurs. But then they're also gonna have to put a 25-foot landscape buffer for our ordinance as part of the development of that second pad.
But only on that north side.
Only on the
wall,
north side.
Not on the portion of Bronco.
That's correct.
That was placed in the ordinance years ago because of the development of the Acton property, which is not the Bartonville store, but the other 4 buildings. And there's a wall that had to be constructed because Reno's abuts it. It's one in abuts, that kicks in.
Yeah, I think this one, because it has a built-in buffer, that's why the ordinance is not requiring that, right? That residential buffer of Blanco.
Because it faces the golf.
Exactly.
Right.
And
You
it's
know,
I get it.
if there, I don't know. Well.
I get it now.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's helpful to know when it's enacted and when it's not, so like some of the concerns just over, sound, then we can say, hey, this still fits our ordinances by having the landscape on that.
Okay, any more questions? Are you ready to make a motion? Do we need to do this separately or as one, the CUP and the site plan?
I would do it separately.
Okay. So. The site plan, if it's acceptable, we need to make a motion, one or the other. Acceptable or not, same with
Gloria?
the
Probably want to do the CUP first,
Yeah.
because that enacts and enables the site plan as presented to the.
CUP. Right, so, do I have a motion for the CUP?
I will motion for the CUP and that we approve it with the conditions stated. And, the CUP, well, actually, let me hold that for 1 second. Do we want to add the no, no speaker or not?
I would like to add a speaker.
Okay, then we want to recommend the CUP with the, staff recommendations, adding that no outdoor speakers shall be allowed.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Site.
Yeah, and Commissioner Lawrence needs to vote and Commissioner Jenkins does not vote.
Okay, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
Is she going to hand down?
Did you vote?
Yes, that's.
All right. Moving on to the site plan, do I have a motion? Somebody?
I make a motion, we recommend the council approval with the conditions stated.
Second. All in favor? Okay. Future items. Are there any items that the commissioners would like to request for an upcoming agenda? I have one, but I don't know that this is the appropriate time to add it. And that is to raise our requirement to meet the 300.
I'm sorry,
I
I
mean-
didn't catch that. Could you please say that again?
No. We need to meet the same as Text Dot instead of us throwing. When we don't match Text Dot, we should, correct, or no?
So Madam Chair, you wanting to change that ordinance, is that what we're talking about?
Yes, I just don't know if that's a big deal to change the ordinance.
Actually, we spoke with Ryan earlier today. He came with us and there's several mandates from legislative updates that we're gonna bring to you in August. So we'll add that one to it. But we have several that he sent to me a couple days ago, actually worked on this here before, and he has a priority list of us. That's what we'll get is the compliance, and we'll bring those to you, but we'll put that one in there as well.
Good.
And so I appreciate Ryan
And
put
anything
those all
else,
together.
if you come up with anything else, it's way too much public hearings and everything else. We don't wanna come back every little while and change it. We need a big bucket.
There's a big buck.
Okay,
He's gonna make a lot of money on this.
We're gonna address priorities for matching legislative requirements, to meet state law. But there are also some best practices, if I may speak. There are also something like a pretty long list of best practices that I've brought as recommendations. We don't have to do all of them, but just kind of modernize the code a little bit, still keep the Bartonville feel to it. But just make sure that it's actionable, that it doesn't have internal conflicts, things like that, which I know that drives you crazy, Gloria, so we'll fix that.
Okay. Thank you. If there's nothing else, we will adjourn at 7:50.
So thankful you were back.
What you said.
She's glad line.